Hello YouTube, it's Borders Dude and I'm back with a video review. Today I thought I would take a look at the recently reissued Generation 1 Hot Rod. This is a figure that's been reissued so many times, so why should you pick up this version? Taking a look at Hot Rod's alt mode first of all, and it's still as iconic as ever as a toy. The paint scheme is very simplified, but that's to, echo the toon accuracy of this paint job, and I think it does work very well. But a lot of you, like myself, may lament the lack of chrome on the engine and on the exhaust pipes. It's very plain, but this is the sacrifice you have if you want that toon accuracy in your deco. The tyres are definitely made of rubber, if not it's a very rubbery plastic, and I do love how I'm not seeing pegs plugged into wheels on these figures. It's a nice little push pin, which is very cool. You still have some nice iconic flares that you got in the original toy, such as that clear blue plastic windshield, which I still think is awesome and pops on the mould itself. Again, when it comes to the paint, that's pretty much it. It's all done in the coloured plastic, apart from his infamous flame deco on his chest. But you get everything you would expect from this Generation 1 mould, and yes, of course, it does roll as you would expect, and rolls a bit better than a lot of the Generations line does these days. Size comparison time now, and I think it's only fair we do it geewun style. Let's bring in Headmaster Chrome Dome. Do they scale well together? I would definitely say so. I think both of them are very much Cybertronian alt modes, and that works very well for me. And of course we had to bring in Rodimus Prime, because that makes sense since that's who he becomes. And again, I do think these figures scale very well with each other. Definitely you can see the size difference when he becomes Rodimus Prime, and I think that's really cool. Time to take a look at Hot Rod's robot modes now. The one thing I find about transforming Generation 1 figures is that I tend to overthink the process. I'm that used to now transforming Generations figures, and in some cases third-party figures that I do pick up in my collection. And what I find with Generation 1 figures is that they will tend to fight you all the way if you try and transform something a little bit out of sequence, as you might see in the little box transformation I've got going on in the left hand side of this video. But once you take that step back and realise that you're dealing with 80s engineering, you do start to enjoy the transformation, and it's fun to flip the transformer back and forward. And when we do transform him from his alt mode, we get this wonderful, albeit a brick looking robot mode. But all the hallmarks of Hot Rod are there, and are done with the limitations of the time. The paint deco's obviously changed slightly, but you still get that wonderful flame deco on his hood. We've got some lovely paint detailing going on there on his arm. In terms of the articulation for the figure, you get a reasonable amount, I guess, for a figure from that era. You do get a nice bend at the elbow. You do get a wrist swivel. The head doesn't move because that's in a fixed position. You do actually get some toe articulation, that's due to transformation, and the toes, die-cast metal. Something I didn't expect to see in a reissue in this day and age, but they brought it back, and I think that was a really nice touch for this version of the reissue, as I know some of the reissues only had the plastic feet. Of course, we're going again with that simplified paint job, and that shows up here with the pastel, I guess, painted legs. But it works, it achieves what it's set out to do in terms of this paint application. The face is still as haunting as ever when it comes to Hot Rod. I think in low light it's even a bit more haunting. But again, you have to look at this figure for the time it was made. It's always important to look at that, and more importantly who this is marketed at. And scale comparison time. So here we see Hot Rod with Rodimus Prime and Chrome Dome. Again, Generation 1 doesn't seem to scale well with each other, but it gives you an idea, and I think it's only fair that we do the scale comparison with Generation 1 figures in this instance. However, I would be remiss if I didn't bring in the Studio Series hot rod, and that shows you how far we have come in such a reasonably short time in terms of toy engineering. The Studio Series 86 hot rod is one of the most outstanding moulds I have ever had the pleasure of transforming. For accessories, you do not get the Target Master with this version of hot rod because he didn't have the Target Master in the movie. What you do get is his two blasters, and they're done in that grey plastic, the very plain plastic, but once again going for that tuna aesthetic, and the sculpting is there and it still is wonderful as ever. My final thought on the geewun reissue of hot rod in the movie deco colours. If you already have this mould, do you need this version of it? Unless you're a die-hard hot rod collector, absolutely not. It doesn't do anything different in way of articulation or design that the previous reissues did, or even the original. A lot of people do miss that toy deco that hot rod had in the chrome on the exhaust pipes and engine. But if you have never experienced this mould, you can't go wrong picking up this version. It also has the die-cast feet that other reissues didn't have, which is a nice touch, and that was a staple of Generation 1 figures and should be experienced. This figure is also a part of history, and it shows that Hasbro and Takara were going away from using existing Diaclone moulds and microchange moulds and venturing into their own designs. Now, some people dislike this era of Transformers because of the brickness nature of them, but I think it's wonderful, and this is a nice piece to have in your collection, be you a hot rod fan or just someone curious in experiencing the Generation 1 figures for the first time. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you soon with another.